Hey, what's up, VC? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel, and it's time for another hard rock and heavy metal update. Bunch of stuff to show, so I'm just going to kind of fly through this. I know I always say that, and these always last 20 minutes, so it is what it is, you know. First of all, in the background, just one of the all-time great bands. This is Loudness. This is The Sun Will Rise Again, their 2014 release. This is a Japanese pressing of it. It was released here in the US, but it's really weird. It's a different mix of the songs, and then there's a couple songs that are on here that aren't on the American one, and vice versa, which doesn't make sense to me. This one's actually an SHM CD, and it sounds phenomenal. It's actually the first SHM CD that I've ever seen that's not in a mini LP jacket. This one's actually in a hard case. Regardless, I found this for $5.99 at a local store. Killer album. If you're not familiar with Loudness, just really good traditional hard or heavy metal from Japan. They've been around since, I believe, 80 or 81. Actually, I'm going to show their first album in a couple minutes here. But they've released albums almost every year. The most they've gone is 3 years between albums. This is number 26, and this was number in 2014. They've released 3 more albums since then. They're just really prolific writers, and I can't think of an album of theirs that I didn't enjoy. Again, this is number 26, and it's killer. So just kind of jump into the vinyl. First up, just an all-time classic. I ended up finding this on one of the message boards. I've been looking for their albums on vinyl forever, and the prices, especially their second one and third one, are through the roof. I was lucky enough to get this one for like 20 bucks in near mint condition. But this is Show No Mercy from Bride. Just a killer album. Pure Metal Records. You can't go wrong with Pure Metal Records. If you find anything on that label, grab it. Just an awesome, awesome album right here. And I've always loved the artwork of their first few albums. Next up, this is one that was VCLT from Scott. I pulled this out to give it another spin. Just really killer thrash. He special ordered these from, I want to say he got them from Germany, but he ordered 2. There were only 500 pressed. I believe the first 200 were on yellow vinyl and the last 300 were on black vinyl. He kept the black vinyl copy and sent me this one. And again, this is After All on Killer Metal Records. Why not? Killer Metal Records, that's great. But just awesome VCLT and a great album. If I remember correctly, this one was released in 2008, but I think it came out a couple years before that with a different album cover. Regardless, I highly recommend picking up any After All that you run across. I've got 3 of their albums so far, and I love all 3 of them. Next up, a little bit of Vinnie Vincent Invasion. This is the second album with the guys from Slaughter, Mark Slaughter, and can't remember the other guy, but I actually prefer the first Vinnie Vincent to this one, but this one is good as well. I actually got this for the KISS convention and planned on getting this signed, but then when it came in, it was a sealed copy, but then when it came in, it was corner cut, which I didn't notice when I ordered it. But I bought this and the first album, mint condition sealed, I thought. And the first one had a hole punch too, which again, I was kind of pissed off, but I got the first one signed by Vinnie Vincent and Robert Fleischman. That's the other reason I went with the first one, because it had Robert Fleischman on it. So I had both of them sign it, but still really good Vinnie Vincent. Next up, probably my least favorite of their first 4 albums, but that's not taken away from this. This is a great album. I've always loved the album art for this, but the sound changed slightly. This is Escape to Nowhere from Omen. Again, this is one I found on one of the YouTube message boards for maybe 12, 15 bucks, and really nice shape though, a nice original pressing. They just repressed their first 3 albums. I'm not sure if that one got a repress as well. Again, next up, this is one, speaking of the KISS convention, I actually got this there for like 10 or 15 bucks. but a really clean copy of Atomic Arena from Barren Cross. And this album is awesome. Absolutely love this. This is probably my favorite Barren Cross album. Just killer from beginning to end, though. And speaking of loudness, like I said, I had a copy of their debut LP. This one, again, I got on one of the message boards. I paid $15 for this. The vinyl and the jacket are mint. Sounds absolutely amazing. This was a Japan-only release. Their first few albums, their first 4, I think. Don't quote me on that, but their first few were Japan-only releases. Unfortunately, this one didn't have the Obi, but for the price, I couldn't pass up on this. And I've always loved that album art too. But again, you can't go wrong with loudness. This is a little bit different in that the vocals, what was his name? Was it Minoru? Yeah, Minoru. His English wasn't that good yet, so it's still got the really thick accent. When you hear the later albums, his English is really clear. And then, of course, for a few years, there was an American singer. I can't think of who it was off the top of my head. But, and then he came back to the band a few years later. But I love all of their stuff. That one had more of a almost heavy metal with almost a J-pop. And not J-pop like what you guys hear today with the J and K-pop, but like a kind of an 80s J-pop vocal to it, which is a kind of a cool juxtaposition if you're familiar with those two genres from that era. But really killer album though. Next up, I've shown a couple of these albums in my last few videos. This is a split, Under Command with Ram and Portrait. I'm not a huge Portrait fan. I don't dislike them, but they're not a favorite. They do each other's, one song from each other on here. There's a Kiss song, or maybe they do one of their own songs, one from the other band, and then one's got a Kiss song. I can't remember what the cover is of, or who does the cover of the what the band is that Portrait covers, but they also do a cover. Next up, I absolutely love this album. This is the album that really got me into this band. I could have put these guys in a bunch of different videos. There's elements of hard rock, there's elements of heavy metal, there's elements of rockabilly, there's elements of psychobilly, and that's what I love about this band. From the first time I heard them, I absolutely loved them. I was really stoked to get a copy of this finally. But this is Beyond Hell Above Heaven, and this is Volbeat. This is the one that I recommend checking out if you have not yet heard Volbeat. They're such a great band. I can't remember if this was on. Yeah, this one is on orange, clear orange vinyl. Really killer band, though. I'd love to see these guys live. I've got a couple of their live sets on CD, and they're really good. And I planned to go see them last time they came through, and something came up and I couldn't make it. I don't remember what it was. I may just not have had the money, but phenomenal album. Next up, this is one that people either love or hate. This was his first solo album. I like the whole A side. I could live without the whole B side. So I see why people don't like it as much as I believe it was his 3rd or 4th album, which could have been an Iron Maiden album. But this is Bruce Dickinson, Tattooed Millionaire. I ended up picking this one up when I was in Baltimore last year and just got around to spinning it. I already knew Son of a Gun and Gypsy Road, Hell on Wheels. I liked all of those songs. Again, I like the whole A side. I could live without the B side. All the Young Dudes is kind of cool, but other than that, the whole B side could have been left off for me. But still, worth having. If you're an Iron Maiden fan or a Bruce Dickinson fan, it needs to be in the collection. So I finally bought this. I've talked about this, and I refused to buy it brand new. I ended up buying it used for like 10 bucks. I like this album. It's just been played nonstop over the years. It's still one of my all-time favorite songs. I just can't listen to it that much because I've listened to it a million times. But this is Ace of Spades from Motorhead. It was nice to give it a spin after a long time. I love Fast and Loose. Fast and Loose is one of my favorite Motorhead songs. So is Ace of Spades. But you got Love Me Like a Reptile, which is killer. Jailbait. I mean, there's so many good songs on this album. It's just been played to death. I was real late really getting heavily into Motorhead. It's just been the last 10 years or so where I've really been into them. But I've had that album since probably 89 or 90, you know, so, and I've played it a lot. But I was kind of like a lot of people. I had always heard that all Motorhead sounds the same. And there may be some truth to that, but not in the way that all AC/DC sounds the same. Motorhead, Lemmy's writing has always been phenomenal. And I do hear different things in each album, whereas with bands like AC/DC, it is more same. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Motorhead has rolled through quite a few amazing musicians over the years to play along with them. But next up, I've been showing these in my last few videos. I've been buying all the reissues as I found them. I love this new artwork, but this is Demonic from Testament. So when this came out, I was playing with my band, and all the guys from the band hated this. I was the only one that really liked this album. This was the introduction of Gene Hoglan on drums. It's amazing the drummers that they've had in this band. And actually, when I saw him a couple months ago, Gene Hoglan was playing for him again. I actually got to say hi to him and meet him. He was a couple feet away from me. I don't know if I ever showed that picture, but definitely one to have in the collection. Chuck Billy, he did the more death metal style vocals on this one, and they sounded phenomenal. He just had a really good voice for it. But killer album. This has been on my want list for so long, but original pressings are insane. Next up, Pretty Maids. This was an upgrade. Future World. The copy I had, although it was a gold stamp promo, the whole corner here was bent in pretty bad. So I threw that up for sale. I found this one for like $8 in near mint condition. The vinyl on the other one was near mint too, but it just had that damage to the cover. So generally I would keep the gold stamp promo, but in this condition, we're going with this one. Great album though. Next up, King Cobra. This one is a gold stamp promo. I thought I had this, and I ran across it for cheap, so I grabbed it thinking I could trade it or send it as VCLT or something. But I didn't have it in the collection. I had one of the other King Cobra albums. This is probably their best, in my opinion. But this is Ready to Strike. I've never liked the album cover, but great album. Next up, probably one of the least favorites for most people of this band. However, this was the first album of theirs that I bought, or that I had the album of. I had heard songs of theirs from the earlier albums and liked all of those. And actually, most of my favorite songs from this band are from the first and third album. I absolutely love this album. It was a slight change. And it was a little more disjointed than other albums, but I loved just about every song on here. And this is Souls of Black. And I'll tell you what, this is an MOV pressing. It sounds phenomenal. The two MOV pressings from Testament that I have are way better than any of the other reissues. They just sound the best across the board. Highly recommend picking this one up. And Souls of Black has just always been a favorite song of mine. Next up, this is my all-time favorite EP. This is a local band for me. I really love these guys. I've talked about them a bunch of times before. They are one of my all-time favorite metal bands. Actually, the #1 album on my want list right now is Heal, which is impossible to find here in the US for a decent price. But this is Sacred Reich, Surf Nicaragua. This is actually the recent reissue that also has Alive at the Dynamo EP on here. So this is the double EP version. Must have in any metal collection though. Amazing EP. Next up, this is Nuts, Hard Nuts. They went on to become the new wave of British heavy metal band, Rage. After their first album is Rage, they kind of got away from the new wave of British heavy metal and kind of went the pop route. Their first album is Rage is the Best, but I actually like their Nuts albums better. This is Hard Nuts. This is just a great, great album. Really good 70s hard rock. I really enjoy this. This is one that's been on the want list for a long time, but I found it finally for like $6 in mint condition. Again, if you're on that 70s hard rock kick, this is definitely one to have in the collection. Next up, I actually didn't know that I already had this album. Apparently there's a couple different covers for this. Both of my copies are US pressings and they have different covers. But this is Corridors of Power from Gary Moore. This is probably my favorite of the Gary Moore albums. Really, really good. And I like most of the stuff he did, but that one... And you know what, now that I think of it, one of them may be a UK pressing. Maybe the one that I have with the different covers is a UK pressing. This one I've shown before. I pulled it out to give it another spin. This is one that I pre-ordered from the band that is signed. This is Conformicide from Havoc. This was one of my favorite albums from 2016, I believe. No, 2017. So this is one of my favorite albums from last year. I can't remember if I did a video, but if you pre-ordered it, came in this clear 3-sided vinyl with an etching. I don't know if you'll be able to see the etching on it, but let's see. I really dig this album though, and I hadn't spun it since I first got it. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's really hard to see. It's the Havoc logo though. There you go. You can kind of see it there. Definitely one I recommend picking up. They have, whereas their earlier albums, their first 3 albums, you can hear the Testament and the Metallica influences. This one, they're more coming to their own sound. You still hear a little bit of that Bay Area thrash, but they are definitely coming into their own as writers and as musicians on this particular album. Next up is, let's see, not much to say about this one. We've all talked about it. I actually pre-ordered the LP and then just barely spun it for the first time a couple weeks ago, or a couple days ago. And the main reason is I've had the CD in the car and I've been playing it non-stop. But this is Firepower from Judas Priest. I'm not going to go all crazy and say it's the best album since this or the best album since that, because I liked their last album a lot. I liked Angel of Retribution a lot. This album is amazing. I did see him about a month ago. I didn't make a video for some reason. I just got wrapped up and forgot about it. But I did go see Judas Priest on this tour with Deep Purple, and they were absolutely amazing. I was blown away. And I can't think of his name. What really blew me away was, give me a second, Faulkner. Man, this thing is torn, cut. I'm gonna have to get another one. Look at that. And right here. Son of a bitch. Oh well. I guess I'll be looking for another copy of this one. That kind of pisses me off. But Richie Faulkner blew me away. He's amazing live, and I really look forward to seeing what he does next. You know, Judas Priest is not going to be around a lot longer. You know, Rob Halford's, I think, 67. I don't know how many more tours they're going to do, if any. That's why it was really important that I go see him. The only downside of that tour, and it was only for a few minutes, I paid up for some tickets. We were in the 15th row. I was right up there. It was killer. The only downside was they opened and then Deep Purple played second. There was another band that opened for them. They were a really good band. The singer had it was kind of like a Black Crowes type of band. The singer had a Mick Jagger thing going on, the way he danced. Kind of a mix of Mick Jagger and Iggy Pop. And kind of a cool thing though. I kind of dug them. Judas Priest came out and they murdered it. It was so good. I couldn't talk the next day because I was singing so much during that. The only downside was it was so heavy, and they kept the speed up. They didn't play a lot of their slower stuff. They just ripped into it. And then Deep Purple came on, and Deep Purple just should not follow a band like Judas Priest. Don't get me wrong, Deep Purple was amazing, but the first two songs I just couldn't get into it because I was so hyped up from Judas Priest. And then, you know, they get into their, you know, I don't want to say more mellow stuff, but, you know, it's just not the same. And but they were great too, and once I got into it, I really got into it. It just took me about a song and a half before I could get into the groove after watching Judas Priest. But and then last but not least, a little trio here. This was my introduction to this band, was their second album, which I absolutely love. It's actually, there's 2 or 3 songs that are on my gym playlist that I listen to when I'm working out, especially when I'm lifting weights. This is a band that I really like to listen to. I hear a lot of people say that this is a mix of thrash and doom. I can kind of see that. It's kind of a slower thrash, and it's really good. But I had never heard their debut, and I actually think I like their debut better than their second album, and I love their second album. But this album was so great. I don't know how I've gone so long without hearing this, but I highly recommend picking these up if you still can. But these are the Seventh Angel reissues, and this is the Torment. Man, this is such a great album. And this was done by Retroactive. Scott did the artwork for him. If I remember correctly, he got the original artwork from the artist and was able to use that, or scans of the original artwork. And this stuff came out so good, so clean. Highly, highly recommend grabbing these, though. This one was done on orange vinyl. And what I like about these is they match the covers. It kind of matches that orange in the background. I've been playing the crap out of this, though. And then, of course, next up is their second album, which is just an absolute masterpiece, in my opinion. And this is some of my favorite album art right here. I've always loved this. And Scott definitely cleaned and sharpened it up over the original. It looks really beautiful. Unfortunately, mine, all 3 of them, had the corners damaged when I got them. And I actually didn't even notice it until it was like a month and a half later before I got around to, maybe a couple months later before I got around to opening them up and spinning them. So I didn't even notice it for quite some time. And then the third one, this one was done a few years later, I think. So 2009, when was this one? This was like 92, 91. So from 90, so they took almost 20 years off. I like this album, but this is definitely my least favorite. They were going for, instead of that slow thrash burn that they had in those first 2 albums, this is more of like a progressive death metal almost. Not bad. I like it. It's just not what I expected from this band. And I don't know if everybody's pressing. My pressing of this one is kind of noisy. It didn't come out as nice as the first 2. Did I show you the? I forgot to show the second one. So the second one, you know, everything is kind of that blue background. And then they did the vinyl in blue as well. And then, last but not least, we've got the Dust of Years. I do really like this artwork. Very cool. But yeah, my pressing for some reason is just kind of noisy. And this one is opaque red. It just kind of matches the background of this one as well. So that's it for now, guys. Again, I highly recommend picking up these Seventh Angel albums because they did a limited press. I can't remember how many they did, but it's only a few hundred, and they're going to sell out quick. You can get them at Boone's Overstock. I'm sure Rox has them, and Scott may have them on NoLifeTillMetal.com. I haven't looked. But Seventh Angel. That's it, guys. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.